We're going to send the Freedom Village Army to make solar punk memes.
I mean, I love what I'm looking at here.
Yeah, it's like I really want to like be vibe coding and like building my startup, and then I want to go like pull carrots and make sourdough. And
yes!
I literally want both of those things, and I'm not going to compromise. And that's why I don't want to live in New York City. You know?
You can have world-class people that you're around and be out in nature and build cool things. And so having like, why wait till retirement? Might as well do it now.
Every 10 years, the cost of getting a new drug or a biologic to market doubles. And that's fundamentally a policy and a legal problem. It's not a scientific problem. It's self-imposed.
Dinner is basically saying, if you're a creator, you also are a community builder, whether you know it or not.
Right.
And all the potential energy that's stored in there can get unlocked with dinner.
I think we're living in a world where the rate of change and the pace of change is sometimes disconcerting for people. They're trying to figure out like what's going on, what's up, what's down, and the media kind of plays into some of that. Anytime you have fear, you can have some uncertainty and some doubt about what the future is. But usually the advancement of human progress brings much more goodness than it does bad things.
You're listening to Yankee Dynamism, the show about techno-optimism, innovation, and progress across New England. Produced by Granite Goodness, I'm your host, Andy DeMeo. I'm a lifelong New Englander and New Hampshire native who spent 10 years as a career environmentalist. In that time, I came to believe that our biggest problem wasn't actually a lack of progress on important issues, but rather that much of the public just has no idea about the solutions and progress we had made. Too many of us are too pessimistic about the prospect of making the world a better place. So I became a solutions journalist and started a media brand called Granite Goodness, devoted to sharing optimistic local good news that actually matters across New England. In the 2 years I've been doing Granite Goodness, I've mostly avoided technology as a topic. I did this because I felt like most of the time when people encounter this idea that we should be excited and optimistic about the future, it's almost always already about technology. I first wanted to show audiences that you could be optimistic about the future, and not just because computers get faster, but because people themselves are actually pretty good. Our society solves problems all the time, and the news media tends to over-inform us about everything going wrong. And while I feel that mission is mostly realized, technology remains an ever-important part of how the world gets shaped, for better and for worse. So I wanted to give it its own unique focus within Granite Goodness in the form of this spin-off podcast series. Many people today have a cynical view of technology, seeing the industry as rife with out-of-touch billionaires obsessed with power, channeling America's brightest minds toward figuring out how to addict us to screens and amplify our worst qualities. And while I think some of those views are justified, my job is to help tell a different story about what's possible in the world. The goal of the show is not to deny that tech can be used to make the world worse. Like any tool, it can be channeled towards negative or positive ends. Tech also helps spread culture and ideas across the globe. It helps people learn languages, recipes, make friends, and discover art. It helps us power society with more renewable energy and raise living standards for the world's poorest. I believe the stories we tell literally shape the future that we envision and build, and that too often we're overexposed to narratives of pessimism and decline. We need a different story, and a better one, that isn't just based on hype and yet another delivery app. It's also personal for me. My brother, a type 1 diabetic, has his very life sustained by an insulin pump. My sister, born with a painful jaw condition, is now being healed through advancements in medical treatment. My wife and I ourselves live in rural New Hampshire on a farm powered by solar panels with internet access beamed in from the sky. I've made the conscious choice to stay and build a life in rural New England because I think that this place and its people are unique and have a lot to offer the world as it navigates a blistering pace of change. The American Revolution began in New England 250 years ago, and while the region has remained at the frontier of much social and democratic progress, it remains one of the few places where, at a cafe or hiking trail, there's a pretty good chance the humans you run into could be congresspeople, chicken farmers, CEOs, volunteer firemen, or all of the above. I often remark to people that the executive director of New Hampshire's leading tech consortium is also actually a chicken farmer. I don't think that this is an accident. Tradition and progress are often experienced as conflicting forces, but in New England, more often, they are mutually reinforcing ideals. Nowhere else in the world is there such a concentration of farmers' markets, local direct democracy, world-class universities in science, a reverence for history, and liberal values blended with rural character. New England's unique embrace of authenticity, independence, community, and progress is not a coincidence or a fluke. It's actually just who we are. I call this spirit Yankee Dynamism. So if you believe that technology can and should be used for good and are tired of a small group of people from far away dominating that conversation, join me as I sit down with some of New England's most interesting humans who share that belief and are doing something about it the Yankee way. On episode number 1, I'm joined by Ray, Ryan, Jeremy, and Ian, who together are building a literal village and intentional community for tech optimists, founders, and enthusiasts here in New Hampshire. Inspired by our state motto, live free or die, they're calling it Freedom Village. I think that their vision is a powerful expression of the values and ideas I just spent a few minutes talking about. And not only that, they're throwing a whole 2-day summit in August devoted to celebrating and making the case for why more people should build innovative businesses here in New Hampshire. We also talk about the balance between risk, progress, and regulation in biological and nuclear technology, the aesthetic of solar punk, political tribes, using tech to help people make friends with strangers, and a bunch of other fun stuff. Thanks for joining us, and I hope you enjoy episode 1 of Yankee Dynamism. Welcome, everybody. This is episode 1 of Yankee Dynamism.
Whoop, whoop.
Okay? Yankee D.
Yes. And Yankee Dynamism is kind of a spin-off, a sub-brand of this thing that I do, right? Granite Goodness. For anybody listening to this, my name is Andy DeMeo. I'm the creator of a media brand called Granite Goodness, and its mission is to share optimistic stories of progress and problem-solving and innovation all across New England, but kind of proudly hosted here in New Hampshire. I feel like I've kind of accomplished that, right? It's been 24 months. The brand is live. It's doing great. People understand this concept of like, hey, local good news.
You and your somersaults are famous.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, at least to a couple people.
Mm-hmm. To me.
To you and my mom and my wife probably. But, you know, I feel like technology, obviously, like it's super important. And it's almost like maybe the most important thing, right? And I feel like it deserves its own kind of focus. It has kind of its own world. And, you know, not to say that I won't like ever talk about technology on the regular Granite Goodness, but I wanted to give it its own specific like outlet within the brand. So that's the idea behind Yankee Dynamism, right? It's going to be this kind of spin-off podcast. And this is episode 1. I'm very excited to have each of you here because you all identify in one way or another as techno-optimists, and you are doing something cool local to this place, you know, that I love and is my home. So I'd love to start just by like, who are you? What does techno-optimism mean to you? Are you a techno-optimist? Jeremy.
Man, talk about the tough question going first year. Jeremy Hitchcock, tech entrepreneur, do a bunch of random things, and have done some technology things from working on an internet infrastructure company. Really early on realized that the Yankee part of how we think of building, we're very stoic in what we do, but it should get celebrated. So really excited about that. And I think we're living in a world where the rate of change and the pace of change is sometimes disconcerting for people. They're trying to figure out like what's going on, what's up, what's down, and the media kind of plays into some of that, but also just anytime you have fear, you can have some uncertainty and some doubt about what the future is, and that gets leaned into. But usually the advancement of human progress brings much more goodness than it does bad things. So we talk about, oh, goodness, we're cars. They had pollution in the 70s and 80s, but if you went back before and you were thinking about horses as its counterpart, like, did a lot better with automobile emissions than we did with
take
horse
the car over the horse.
Yeah, so it's certainly understand the many things, whether it's data centers, nuclear power, whether it's bioengineering, whether it's medicines, whether it's plague, famine, energy, oil.
Don't forget the AI.
Miss the AI thing.
I've actually tried to avoid it, but we can get into that.
Yeah, I mean, we should. I mean, just it's like it's common parlance for me now.
What does it even mean anymore? You know, it's like.
But it's being able to embrace those things and do so in a way that we can have a positive and collective conversation, because there are real things that do need to get thought through with some of those.
All right. Ian, who are you?
I'm Ian Hewitt. I'm an attorney and a policy advocate, and I'm a member of the board of directors of Granite Bioinnovation, which is a nonprofit that is dedicated to promoting human flourishing by advancing ethical experimental biotech in New Hampshire through policy advocacy and education. And I'm also helping these incredible New Hampshire entrepreneurs organize Freedom Summit.
Are you a techno-optimist? What does that mean to you?
I'm absolutely a techno-optimist.
Why?
And we could probably have
the elevator pitch.
If you want me to get philosophical,
Yeah,
I'm a Christian, and I believe that Christianity is the foundation of techno-optimism and the foundation of technology and the foundation of optimism. And so techno-optimism, I think, just like flows necessarily out of my core innermost views. But to get a little bit more concrete and to bounce off of what Jeremy just said, I would say I think the main reason that the default attitude towards advancing and frontier technology is like fear and skepticism is because if you're sort of technophobic, there are many very understandable, coherent stories of like what the nightmarish outcomes are going to look like. Like the permanent underclass is a very coherent and plausible sounding story. On the techno-optimist side, there are many like diffuse, ambiguous kind of memes that just consist of like a word or a few words where we just say we're gonna build.
Right.
There's often not a coherent story for what techno-optimism is going to look like in practice. Like there's not a coherent explanation of how this is going to concretely bring more flourishing to your life.
Yeah.
And probably, if we drilled down into it and we had a long philosophical discussion, all of our kind of specific iterations of techno-optimism would look somewhat different in terms of what that coherent story is. But I think that the fundamental thing that you need is to create a coherent story in order for techno-optimism to work.
Oh man, I want to get into all that stuff if we have the time. Ryan.
Yeah, I'm Ryan, co-founder of Dinner, co-founder of Freedom Village. Techno-optimism to me is like just, is there more energy per capita available to people than there was a year ago?
Yeah.
Like, is that number increasing?
Right.
To me, that's techno-optimism, because at the end of the day, every single thing that you have that's been created, whether by human hands or by a machine, is downstream of energy consumption. So watts per human needs to keep going up.
Right.
And to me, the ceiling is infinity. I really think we should, it would be the saddest thing if we didn't just keep raising that bar and figure out how to like take consciousness and send it to the edge of the universe. Well, you're not going to do that by decreasing the amount of energy available per human. It has to go up.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, it's like, it's a reason and it's a purpose. It's like, that's just what I want to see happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a funny thought exercise, that I often do with my friends and wife is, if you had to send one movie to the aliens to like explain, or not even explain, but like you want to make a positive impression on,
Sandlot.
Right.
Sandlot.
I think Sandlot would do a lot, right?
What was that? Was that your choice?
No, mine.
What were you gonna do?
Mine was Pumping Iron, the Arnold Schwarzenegger like kind of documentary about like his body, because it's just such a bizarre movie. And anyway, that's not the purpose of this podcast. But like, the idea that like there is a positive orientation in like wanting our story to be out there. Like my example is silly, right? It's a silly version of that, but like I think most people, when they think of Voyager, right, like the time we actually did this and put the golden record with the little the stick people and the equations, it's like
beautiful.
I think most people think that was a cool thing to do, right? And so it's like, how do we get more of that spirit into the world? I like it. Ray, are you a techno-optimist? Who are you?
I am. I'm a techno-optimist. I'm Ray Lambert. I'm the co-founder of Dinner, which some people are familiar with, and then also lucky enough to be the co-founder of Freedom Village, which we'll talk about in a bit. I'm definitely a techno-optimist, and I'm not personally that technical, so I think that's like kind of interesting angle. I sometimes am overwhelmed by all the technologies and like the open clouds that I need to be using and all the tools I need to be integrating into my life and into my business, but I'm just a huge fan of humans and the human story, and I really want I want the human story to go on for infinity. I would like us to not be killed by like a huge asteroid. I would like human consciousness to go on forever. I think the whole purpose is just the story, to keep telling the story. And I just think most people who are not techno-optimists have just a short memory. Humans, it's always lumpy. We always have kind of ups and downs, but over the course of human history, like things are incredible. Quality of life, people are living longer, people get to be yoga instructors, people get to be podcast hosts. Like,
Right.
imagine telling the average worker 100 years ago that like you're going to get to pay your bills being a podcast host. They'd be like, what?
They would be like bards no longer exist. Like, you
yeah, I
can't
mean,
do
people
that.
used to work, 18 hours a day just doing hard labor and stuff. And so I just think the quality of life is improving. This comes from innovators and from builders, and it's never popular. And if you're actually innovating, it's very lonely because people don't understand your ideas, and it's so much freaking work, and it's very painful to, long suffering. You have to like get through it. Like Jensen Huang's famous for telling a bunch of like fancy Stanford grads, like, I hope you have suffering so that you will like
Yeah.
be a human and create value in the world. But yeah, I think we need to take the longer view and embrace technology.
Yeah, I mean, you in particular, right? Like you and Ryan, I think are really good. Like I wanted to latch on to you two and some of the things that you were doing when we met, a couple months or I don't even remember. Because I think you are a really good example of like what I hope to draw out from this idea and try and show people, right? Like, again, technology, it's super important. We all interact with it, but kind of like every other thing, I'm like a perennial optimist. This is like, it's like a religious affiliation for me, essentially. Again, the whole idea is like, I don't want to deny that there are problems in the world and that there are sincere things that people disagree about. Of course there are. We all know that. But that story is just like, we're so good at telling it, right? And I love this mantra.
It clicks. It's the dopamine. It's the clickbait.
Yeah.
It's simple.
It's simple. It lacks nuance.
Can I be happy or sad about this?
Right.
Okay,
It
next
puts
thing.
you, it's like the world has like become entertainment more than like a nuanced and I don't think most people want to feel that way, And so technology is so important, and I as a consumer and as like as someone who thinks about the world, like I'm really tired at the way that we talk about it. It's very zero sum. It's very one dimensional. And, I actually think that this place, right, New Hampshire and New England today, we have something really unique to say about the kind of world that we want to build and, propagate because of who we are, like because of all these unique attributes, right? Like this is my go-to example. New Hampshire has a tech alliance, right? A bunch of great, people come together and they advocate for like, how do we make New Hampshire a better place to build technology companies? And their leader, their executive director is a wonderful person named Julie Demers. And Julie is not only the executive director of the New Hampshire Tech Alliance, she is also like a homesteader, okay? Like she's a gardener and she maintains a flock of chickens, right? And I'm sure that's true in other places, but not that many places, I think. There's not that many places where I feel like people have the level of, access to opportunities, let alone like political leadership and, the very, very well networked amount of social capital that we have in New Hampshire, where they have that and they have access to, this rustic kind of lifestyle and these expanses of wilderness, right? Jason Golden, CEO of Mainstay Technology, like same thing, right? Great tech company based in Manchester. He lives in rural New Hampshire and he comes to the city a couple times a week, right? So like this dynamic, I'm obsessed with it. I've structured my life personally based off this. Like I'm from Southern New Hampshire and I moved to the Mount Washington Valley and live on a farm. And I met you guys and heard about all these crazy things that you're planning and doing. And I'm like, oh my God, this makes so much, like you're embodying it because, not only are you have this whole interesting background of like, tech and entrepreneurship and all these different things you've done, but what you do now is a really good example of like the kind of technology that I want more people to know about, the ways that tech can enable human connection, right? So like dinner, your business is that you use, technology, right? To facilitate social connection, right? And
We use AI.
Right. It was, oh no,
careful.
right?
Oh no.
Rejection sampling. Apparently that's AI.
It's right. It's like, what does it even mean anymore? So like,
Yeah.
Can you give like the elevator pitch for dinner? Like tell us what it is. Cause I think it's really cool. And I view it like it's integral to why I think you're the right people to kick off this, sub podcast I'm doing and lead this other really amazing thing that you guys are going to talk about.
Very kind. Dinner is a white labeled dinner club platform, dinner club app.
Well,
so
what is that bit? Like white labeled?
White labeled means that, it's kind of like a car engine, like a Japanese car engine. It could go in a Toyota. It could go in, actually, this is the extent of my car knowledge.
It's swappable?
So the
A
Ford
Nissan-
Probe,
Yeah, I was
the Ford Probe in the late 80s, early 90s was actually made by Mazda. I think, and the engine, like, so the white label is like, well, yeah, but you put the Ford sticker on it.
Yeah.
Maybe Ford's going to hate that.
So any creator can send their audience out to dinner, and they have a landing page that's branded for them. They have their own custom personality quiz for the community. The community takes the quiz. They get paid to book a seat. They get matched up with other strangers at dinner at tables across a town. So Seco Stories are going to be coming up on their 1 year dinnerversary. Troy was our very first victim.
So awesome.
He's going to be hitting up Newmarket, take over the entire town. We only support local restaurants, like independent restaurants. We don't go to chains. People make new friends. The creator makes money. The restaurants get, midweek business that they wouldn't normally get.
Yeah.
And Troy here in Portsmouth was our very first customer, but we have over 100 customers around the world. And we've sent 30,000 people out to dinner. And there's a ton of technology under the hood that the creator doesn't need to know about. The creator just brands it for themselves, picks the date, and announces to their audience. And people make tons of new friends, and they get to be kind of integrated more into their local community.
Yeah.
And so it's it's just like a fun way to celebrate your community and where you're from and meet new people.
Well, I feel like it does the thing that I think a lot of people, maybe they struggle to articulate that they want tech to do this, but how often do you hear people talk about this, right? Community is a problem, third spaces are a problem, like social connection, all these different things. And I think what a lot of people want is hey, I just want, when I think of my relationship to technology, I want it to do things that I want it to help me do things that I want to do anyway, but make it seamless and easy, right? So that I can bring more of the human things that only I, a human being, can do, and in a positive some way, meet other people who share my interests, support local restaurants. These are two very, very popular things, like making new friends and supporting local restaurants, right? And you've literally created all this value from just. No, I mean, not nothing, but it was there waiting to be harnessed.
Energy in a system.
Creators are kind of filling this hole of, go back a couple hundred years, and most of the nexuses in the world were churches and companies.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm just going to use those two examples. And churches create content.
Yeah.
Every Sunday,
right.
Just like you. You're a little church.
You did make fun of me. I began kind of addressing you all as though I was from a pew, and you were like, "Oh my God!"
So they create content that creates a one-to-many relationship that's easy to dial into because you just have to listen. Okay. And now there's community potential where you can say, hey, by the way, now that you're listening to me say all this content, you should go into small groups and do Bible studies. Or if you're a company, you guys should go join these clubs that we created, which a lot of mills in the old days, not the ancient days, in the old days, they'd have these clubs. So dinner is basically saying, if you're a creator, you also are a community builder, whether you know it or not.
Right.
And all the potential energy that's stored in there can get unlocked with dinner.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I think most people are not actually anti-technology because, we're all thankful that we have seatbelts and airbags, but people don't want inauthenticity. I think AI, you think of AI girlfriends and all this just nonsense, slop.
I've got 7.
Slop content. And, when we use technology, it's powering authenticity and in-person connections. And something I actually want to make a comment about New Hampshire and New England in general is I haven't met a single founder working on something harmful. You see this a lot in Miami, LA, San Francisco to some degree, where someone's
I wonder what you're talking about.
Working on porn. They're working on porn bots,
right?
Or AI girlfriends, or things that just crypto scams, or there's a ton of nefarious stuff going on. And I haven't met a single founder working on something not serious in New Hampshire.
Right.
And they're all working on something extremely important.
Yeah. Well, I think this gets a little bit to, what I perceive maybe the populist, at least on the left, critique of the tech sector to be, right? Where it's you have all these brilliant people, who are very talented intellectually, who work very hard. And then it's what have we done as a society such that, the top X percentile of people in terms of their capability and technical ability are channeled into this world where, their priority is to just figure out how to get us more addicted to screens or all these, things that have kind of a questionable net social benefit, right? Not that that should be the goal of it. It's good to make money. You can talk about that. But, people who aren't, I think, in regular dialogue or thinking about, what actually is technology, what are actually the things it accomplishes in the world, who are the people behind these things that we're building, it's very easy to have a cynical view of it because they're so disconnected, you know. And personally, I mean, I agree with what you said of like, I don't know that most people actually have a negative view of it, right? Like, I don't want to be patronizing, and you know, there's this term that economists use, which is revealed preferences, right? And it's the kind of their shorthand for saying, oh, there's the, you know, way that people say they think about things, and then you observe their actual behavior. And if you really want to understand, you observe their actual behavior, right? Like the way that they spend their money, spend their time, etc. And that's the way to get to the truth, right? So in terms of like a revealed preference for, you know, technology relationships, like we're inundated with like people, they use satellites, they use MRI machines, they use microwaves, they use smartphones, they use the internet.
They get 67 packages delivered from Amazon every week.
Yeah, right. Well, even Amazon, I think, is even a good microcosm of this, right? Where it's like, if you actually look at like, you know, levels of trust in terms of like what organizations or corporations like do you trust relative to like civic systems or government, like Amazon scores far, far more favorably than like people's trust in Congress or the government, which is very weird because in the media, like people are always shitting on Amazon. Like it's a very bizarre, something is amiss here in terms of people's relationships.
And you also have the microcosm where you can enjoy and love Amazon just as much, maybe not love, that maybe it's too strong a word.
So
but you can,
love it,
you can certainly enjoy Amazon, but you can also run and start an independent bookseller.
Yeah.
And there's time and place for both of them because a book is not the 100% modality of what you're looking for in terms of a Barnes & Noble or a Bookery Manchester or an Amazon. They all represent different types of things and have different strengths that as you go through life.
Well, just by incredible metaphysical happenstance, it just so happens that all the technology that existed when I was a child and before then is a natural, inevitable part of human experience. And all the technology that's now being created is like unnatural and an aberration. And
Yes.
it
Same with
destroys
music.
what it means to be human. Yeah.
Exactly.
All music when we were young was great. All music now that we're old is bad.
Yeah. Well,
I like the music now. That's cool.
I do too. I'm just
Look
saying.
at all these kids on their newspapers. They were saying like in whatever 1880.
The magazine that doesn't
no, really,
flip.
this is like a real consistently observable phenomenon. The way, you know, think of like, what do you think of the state of the world and the way things are going? And almost always it's like there's like a demographically, you know, repeatable period where people are like, oh, you know, when I was younger, you know, kind of forming as a person in adolescence, like that's when people were kind to each other and they were nice and the world was benevolent and peaceful. And again, I'm not saying like shit doesn't happen in the world, like you can measure a lot of this stuff, like I'm not disputing that, but you know, there is a real I mean, they killed Socrates for corrupting the youth, right? And that was 2,000 years ago. And it's like, it's the same, it's an echo of the conversation I feel that we're always having now about like, get off the screens. And I think people do spend too much time on screens, but you know what I mean? Like it's, how much of the stuff is really novel, right?
How like controversial are we allowed to be on this?
As much as you want. I mean, this
Ryan Unchained might be a lot, but I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see it.
I am a Luddite on screen time, disclaimer there.
Which I think is good. I mean,
That's great. Like I frequently find myself being like, you know what? I'm deleting all this from my phone. I just like, I can't get anything done.
Yeah. But before I did any of this, like before I became a content creator for a living, which is not a path like I ever imagined, I had a flip phone. Like I opted into getting a flip phone when I was 25 because I was like, I'm tired of social. It's all fake. I don't like it. I don't like my smartphone. It's like too overwhelming, blah, blah, blah. And you know, that's kind of an insane thing to do. Like that's kind of an overcorrection, but it was really, really fun to do for like 2 years. And, you know, so I'm not even saying I recommend everyone do that, but like, it's not a thing that I think people would expect necessarily. Ian, I kind of want to draw out a little more of, you know, your whole thing is like technology and bio-innovation, right? Like,
for sure.
How did you come to think that this was an important thing that you wanted to like dedicate your life to? Like, tell me some of that story.
Well, there's a lot of directions I could go in with that, but just in terms of kind of how everything sort of played itself out, I became the primary lobbyist for a couple years ago, went into effect January 1st of this year, House Bill 701, which was a bill by Representative Lisa Mazer to give New Hampshire the strongest protections in the country for access to experimental therapies for people with life-threatening illness. That's mischaracterized a lot in the media, by the way, as someone who's sort of on the verge of death or in hospice.
Sure.
But what it really means is anyone who has an illness that will kill them eventually in the ordinary course of the illness. That happened in part because I was listening to a podcast where this physician, Dr. Bess Stillman, was being interviewed. She was a prolific Substacker. She Substacked about her and her husband traveling around the country trying to get experimental therapies for his throat cancer. And it occurred to me as she was talking that so many of the obstacles she was describing were fundamentally policy obstacles. And then the more I dug into the intersection of policy and biotech, the more I saw there's this thing called Eroom's Law, which is that every 10 years, the cost of getting a new drug or a biologic to market doubles. And that's fundamentally a policy and a legal problem. It's not a scientific problem. It's self-imposed.
Yeah.
And you can see that by kind of comparing different countries. So there was just a lot of low-hanging fruit here, and there just weren't a lot of people working on it. There are multiple answers I could give, but that's a big part of the answer. Is I think so often people that have an entrepreneurial mindset and they're interested in biotech, and this is a good thing, they just go into biotech and they start a biotech company. And I think that's maybe created sort of a brain drain where people that could be really effective in creating pro-innovation policy just aren't working on pro-innovation policy.
Right.
So that's part of the answer.
Eroom's Law, Moore's Law in
Moore's Law is
reverse.
spelled backwards, exactly. Yeah. Glad you brought that up. Thank you.
You all would have a better sense of this, than myself, but I think the sense I get in talking, to like entrepreneurs and people who are in the private sector is that there's, it's not a surprise to anybody that like the nature of government is to regulate, to move slow, by default, as opposed to this view that in the private sector, there's no rules and you can do anything, right? Which, is maybe true some of the time, but a lot less true than I think that people think it is.
Only people who haven't started businesses think that's true.
Right.
But even, I'd be kind of curious your thoughts on this, but even the Hippocratic Oath sounds like that's obviously don't do any harm.
Yeah, do no
first.
harm.
But then you're like, yeah, but to try this thing, I am taking a risk. There's an expected value on the other side of this trial.
Right.
And it actually might not be, I might have to hurt you a little. That's like, or maybe you have to hurt a few people so that you can help a lot of people.
Yeah, to whom is it harm? Is it harm, lack of harm, opportunity of harm, societal? Like there's a whole bunch of those types of things. And that's one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs and people who are building are they're having to wrestle with those questions these days. It was one thing to go build a software app and be like, all right, I'm going to put it on a phone and somebody else is going to use it. But now it's the totality of thinking about what are the policy implications of what happens when I do this? If there's, right now, just to be in the bio lane, the way that they're making some of these grown organs, they're putting them in an animal,
right?
And sometimes that animal, or many times that animal, is does not survive that process.
Yeah.
So that entire animal's life is dedicated to the production of an organ that's going to go into a human. And
right.
So there's some questions around that transgenic and ethical standpoint. And so can we move past that?
Yeah.
And is it a stepping stone to being able to be more wholesome with the types of treatments? And that's the thing I love about all the technologists around here. To Ray's point earlier, like people here are I think really thoughtful and intelligent and conversational about all of these issues. And that's what you would want somebody who is trying to invoke this, like, do no harm. Like, boy, that's a really complicated thing. How do I go figure that out?
C-section, for example, is like a husband trying to save his wife, and it's like, sure, that's harmful but it ultimately worked. Something we've been able to help Ian a little bit, and we testified on some of the bills in the right to try space, and something I had no idea, I'm learning about the whole area. I had no idea that FDA phase 1 trial just proved safety. The trials after that, 2, 3, and 4, prove efficacy, and not just efficacy, but efficacy on this very specific, problem, and compared to other treatments in the market. And so, for example, like the GLP-1s, they were proven like 20 years ago, and it's taken like 23 years to get them to kind of mass market. But sometimes like a GLP-1, I'm going to butcher this, so you can correct me in a second. You can play cleanup crew in a second, but it's like, okay, it's really good for weight loss, but we haven't tested it on diabetes yet. So then it has to go all the way back through.
Yeah.
And we can't just say, oh, maybe we should try it for that. And I'm sure I did butchered some stuff.
I think
no, you got the basics right. Well, I would just point out this whole construct of mandatory, multi-phase, pre-market, regulator gatekept approval, where we're testing for efficacy. This whole construct really just comes from the 60s. And many other countries that we consider to be, civilized, first world, credible countries in biotech have very different frameworks. And maybe an FDA-like framework as the default, but it's not uniform. It is just monolithically uniform in the United States. There's just no way to get around this. We cram everything into this one mold. That's probably the primary explanation for this E-rooms law thing we were talking about. And quickly, if I could add on with respect to people that might be skeptical of deregulation and are suspicious of that and think that's going to be used to kind of exploit people. One thing I would point out is in this country, we don't have anything approaching that kind of rigid regulator gate kept mandatory pre-market approval in all cases for food additives. We have food additives that are perfectly legal in this country where there's a broad consensus where even the NIH says this is almost certainly a human carcinogen that people should not be consuming, and it's in food
Red dye number 5.
all around the country.
That stuff's
But-
good.
Yeah, we
that's
stuff that
what's in
Europe has
this. You
banned.
can't
Remember
see
the
it.
yellow
Right.
5 craze?
So,
Mountain Dew?
so food additives are like innocent until proven guilty beyond all doubt, in essence. Whereas for some reason, and I think it's largely a product of like historical flukes and happenstance and just
Yeah.
kind of these emergent, the way that regulators kind of amass power over time. But we've set up a system where biologics that sick people need to live are presumed guilty until proven innocent through this incredibly rigorous system that's evolved over several decades. Whereas a food additive, there can be overwhelming evidence it's very dangerous and it can be given to millions of people.
There's definitely a bias that we all have. Like, this is kind of a similar example of what we're talking about, like worldview and the time you grow up, right? Like, I feel that there's a great bias towards the status quo, right? Or the way that things were when you, self-actualized into the world. And that's as true for a lot of cultural things. And it's certainly true for, anything tech involved or adjacent, because it, a lot of those things evolve in exponentials, and the pace of them, as you said, can be so startling. It's not intuitive to understand and think about exponential change over time, right? Like, it's easy for us to think of, okay, if I added 5 things a year as opposed to 5% a year, right? Like, those are totally different outcomes over 5, 10, 20, 30 years. When you're talking about any new technology or particularly medical treatment, right? Like, a lot of people want, cancer treatments, right, to get better, obviously. But I think some of our risk tolerance for what we're willing to accept to, make improvement on that stuff is more to our experience of the present, right? And that includes the regulatory environment. One of my favorite books is this one. It's called The Emperor of Maladies, or All Maladies, all about like the history of chemotherapy. And like, it's fucking brutal. Like, thousands of people like had, and I don't mean to minimize it. Like, I really want to bring this, like, we discount how many people had to suffer and die in these experimental things that like didn't go right. And, they didn't know if it was going to work. Like, the history of progress, so to speak, not just in science, but in all these different things, like, it really is like soaked in blood and suffering. And I kind of feel like when we don't think seriously about, okay, what's the optimal way to make a bunch of different things better, we don't do credence to the people who come before us, and the animals too. I mean, there's like some European country that like they made a statue of mice that was literally devoted to like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, like, we should honor it. Like, there's a conversation to be had about
Well
like
deserved.
Yeah,
so many mice.
we're aware of like the suffering we're incurring, and that we can have an educated, morally intentional conversation about the trade-offs and all these different things. Part of what I want to try and bring out of these conversations is to hear from more people who are engaged on a first-person basis in the building of a lot of different technologies around here, right? It's not a perspective that I think is articulated well in the media. It's not a perspective that people get a lot. And so I really think that there should be more of an angle into the people and why they build these things, and candidly to draw out more of the positives, because we're so good at focusing on everything that's bad and getting worse.
We, as a country, we celebrate people signing up for the army or the military, knowing that they might die on the front lines.
Yeah.
But we don't have the same attitude around biologics and
Challenge
treatments.
trials.
Challenge trials.
Like, you can't be
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll sign up to do a trial. I'm in my early 20s, whatever, an athlete or whatever. Somebody might join the Marines, and you're like, yeah, I mean, if you go to war, you're probably going to get hurt.
There's great
but
risk,
like,
yeah.
you only need, in a challenge trial, you need like way fewer people.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
Well, people have around the FDA paradigm, they have this deep-seated status quo bias, where if you suggest anything radically different, it just sounds crazy automatically. Why is it crazy? Why is it dangerous? They can't tell you, but it sounds crazy. But challenge trials is a really good illustration demonstrating that our system has all these really arbitrary components baked into it, because during COVID, the entire political and scientific elite in this country basically formed a consensus over a few months. We must do challenge trials in order to rapidly find a treatment for COVID. There was very, very little dissent there. And both parties were asking the FDA, all of Congress was asking the FDA, issue non-enforcement guidance. Let's do challenge trials in the U.S.
Is this Operation Warp Speed? Is that
no separate from Warp Speed? I mean, the tragedy is challenge trials didn't happen here. They went over to the UK. The FDA just didn't issue the required non-enforcement guidance in time, and there really was no interest group lobbying against doing challenge trials here. It's just this like psychological emergent
It's just like gravity.
Yeah, that's right. We have where there just wasn't enough force to overcome the default, the friction and the status quo bias that we have around this regulatory system. And so it went over to the UK.
It's a huge opportunity for the right political person. And I think about this. I spent some time around energy and defense industrial base. And for a while, Nuclear Regulatory Commission has been relatively static on any sort of advancements of technology. Basically, 3 Mile Island, China Syndrome, conflation of nuclear energy and nuclear weapons, and basically for 50 years that the industry has been frozen.
Yeah.
And so you look at the rules, and it's based on 1970s metals. It's based. There's no digital computers. You can't do that. And over the last 5 years, whether it's the Advanced Act or whether it's a bunch of executive orders, again, like both parties kind of pushing on stuff, there's starting to be a thawing aspect. And it's amazing how quick things can take place when there is a consensus, when there's political will that pushes things on, and regulatory, I think, follows that air cover that's given. And so sometimes these things just need like, hey, let's go work on this. Let's go think about the collective good that can come as a result of these types of problems that we're facing. And that's what is exciting about a lot of the things, again, the Yankee dynamism that we all do.
Can I ask a follow-up? So, okay, you said that, okay, sorry, I can't perfectly remember. You said something about breakthroughs and tying in what you said about emergence, that a lot of these large organizations, like the end result just sort of emerges because there's a bunch of people that presumably are trying to cover their ass. But breakthroughs in nuclear on the policy side, like how do those kind of like emerge, I guess? Like, are they still like when they succeed, is it because there was like a champion in there doing all the political, like, you know, hoop jumping? I mean, I know you do some of that.
I mean, it's still early to figure out like who and where the champion is. But it was multiple decades of disillusionment, and then also the frustration on. You think about just the climate goals that people have, and how to generate the electricity we're looking for, like net energy per person, and you start looking at the math and say like we need all the energy sources, and you look at energy consumption.
All of the above.
It's all the above. You look at energy consumption. We burn more wood than we have. We burn, other than coal, like everything is up and to the right. We are consuming more energy because like we just need all of it. And it's funny because like you talk about the where the stuff comes from, and a lot of the actually digging of coal came from in Britain, and it was we have pumps and engines was trying to get more coal so we could have heat during the winter time. And that led to a lot of metallurgy, led to steam and locomotive, and a lot of that is all of just like building on top of each other. And we're getting closer and closer to nirvana at the end. Not sure when we're going to get there, but not yet.
My question is, when did the text message come out? Do you remember? When did we start sending text messages?
Oh, you mean
to
like
each
the
other?
technology of the
SMS?
I thought you meant like a text being like nuclear is cool.
No, like an SMS. The ability
Late 90s, I don't
late
know.
90s. Okay, we are freaking regulating nuclear energy, biotech on technology before the fucking text message came out. Okay, this shit has evolved. We're making decisions about nuclear and biotech that are just decades and decades. Like, I mean, things that everyone sends 100 text messages a day. This is
well,
this is insane.
literally in the case law, you can see this very directly where when courts are interpreting the scope of the FDA's regulatory authority over modern biologics like autologous stem cell therapy, they are directly applying a legal framework that was created to help FDR regulate wheat production. Directly. We're using like pre-floppy disk era.
It is
regulation.
insane.
We've got that one figured out, I think.
Yeah.
We can.
Ag stuff from the 30s, huh? But I think that's the trade space. That's the interesting thing is to go back and look at some of these historical things. Maybe not as much progress, but defense innovation or innovation around the defense industrial space. I get asked like, how is it this year compared to last year? And the first couple times I got asked that question, I was like, I can't point to anything that's happened in the last 12 months that makes me excited. I can point to things that have happened the last 36 months that are different than the 36 months before that.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the rate of change for somebody who is in the optimistic category, like you're always tempering your expectations.
Right.
And like having been around some of the bio stuff, like I remember hanging around DECA when I was leaving Dyne and trying to think about what I was going to do next, and the whole idea about Army showing up in the Millyard and Regen Valley now and all that stuff, like that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
And now it's talked about as it's a foregone conclusion that this is an epicenter of where we're doing a lot of this biotechnical stuff. Like, oh, of course. And it makes so much sense. But that was 10 years ago where there was nothing or next to nothing going on.
Yeah, we take it for granted.
And so now we have all these wonderful companies, whether it's United Therapeutics or whether it's Lonza, whether it's other companies that are making organs or making cells or making tissues or therapeutics. Like it's amazing. Like that stuff is cool.
It's almost like New Hampshire is primed to be a very cool place to build not just interesting companies that do positive things for the world, but a kind of community of people who believe in doing such a thing.
That'd be a great idea.
What a good idea.
If only
that would
there
be
was
great.
such a vibe out there. Who should do this? Can I say the two
Please.
words? Freedom Village. What? Well, I should preface this by saying there is the actual town of Freedom, which is 20 minutes from where I live. Like there is a New Hampshire town called Freedom.
Yeah, there's a couple hackers on Twitter who's like, there's already a Freedom New Hampshire. I'm like, yeah, there's also a China, Maine, and a Poland.
I know one of the people there, and I did tell him the name, and his name is Raymond, and he's like, "That's my town. No, that's me. Like you're not you. Wait,
Come visit. Come by anytime.
Yeah. What is this thing? What is it? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, so I had always had this crazy idea, retirement plan, that I wanted to open a hacker hotel, like a small boutique hotel.
Unusual retirement plan.
Yeah. I've lived in San Francisco, New York, and Miami, and Boston, of course. And I've always loved the energy of the city and being around geniuses and builders and people who are fucking weird and fucking nerdy.
Yeah.
I love being like the most normal one in the room.
Right.
But I also love where I'm from. I love the nature. I love the people. I love Yankees.
And you're from Maine, right?
I'm originally from Maine. Yeah,
Yeah.
I went to UNH. Ryan and I's first date was at Popovers in 2007.
Perfect.
In Portsmouth. It had just opened. And so I've always been like very torn between these two things. Like, am I going to keep building my career and building my companies in San Francisco, or I'm going to live where I want to live with the people I love? And at some point I was just like, fuck it. We're not going to compromise anymore.
Yeah.
And so I had this idea to open a hacker hotel, and it would be like a WeWork in the woods, and we'd attract, startup founders and team offsites, and then some people would build houses around it. And like the whole ploy was, I can buy a really expensive espresso machine, and it can be like a business write-off, and I'll just like live in the hotel. It'll be like a bed and breakfast for like, tech people.
Yeah.
And I've been telling anyone who will listen about this idea for years.
Is that true?
Every other car ride. Hey, honey, what do you think about the shed in the bath? Oh, what shed? She's like, at my hacker hotel. Come on. So, wait, you didn't say that in this conversation. No, but it's part of the whole plan. Like,
Where else would we put a shed?
And so a year ago, I mentioned this to Jeremy. And usually people are like, that's stupid. Or they're nicer and they're like, cool idea. Ain't gonna happen, bro. And Jeremy is like, oh, I've had some similar ideas, but we don't have to wait till we retire.
And so here we are, been plotting away and have a spot in mind, and it's a live workspace for basically where people can live and work together in the same place. I remember building a company here and being made fun of for being in New Hampshire. It's like, how can you have an internet company
Oh yeah, Jason
where there's no
Callahan
internet?
was like, you got to get the fuck out of New Hampshire. And I was like, no.
And I think now, maybe it's a post-COVID thing, maybe it's just the realization that community matters a lot more, that you can have world-class people that you're around and be out in nature and build cool things. And so having like, why wait till retirement? Might as well do it now. And very excited about it. And New Hampshire is also kind of like one of these funny things is the mention to tier one cities. Remember doing a user conference at Dyn more than 10 years ago, and like, oh, everybody has like a New Hampshire connection. They went to summer camp,
Right.
they went to a private school here, it's in the politics every 4 years, and we thought, oh, we'll just get like 50 or 75 people to come out. Our customer base was San Francisco, major cities. Maybe 50, 75 people will show up the first year. And we'll call it Geek Summer Camp. It'll be kind of fun. We'll do some like cool activities.
Yeah.
And 250 people showed up the first year without even trying.
Oh, wow.
And it was crazy because everybody did have a New Hampshire story and
Right.
thought, man, I would love to work in a place that I want to live, but I live in XYZ place.
Yeah.
And I think being able to have more options, that you can have this very nice espresso machine next to high-end lathe or additive manufacturing machine.
Modular nuclear reactor.
Yeah, that's right. Free energy.
Yeah.
Be able to grow organs, and then have the ability to put them in you or put whatever other modifications
Because you drink
want.
too much coffee.
But that I think is the mentality of how to build that future, and we can do it here.
Yeah, so Freedom Village is a 100+ acre property that we're going to buy and develop, and it'll be a place for startups and builders and pro-growth minded people to live and work together. It's a secret exactly where it is. We're going to be unveiling that at Freedom Summit, which is a conference we're hosting. But I made like a little hype reel for it and tweeted it out
It's very
the other
good.
day.
Yeah.
And I got 5 DMs from very serious founders who were like, I'm from New Hampshire and this would give me a reason to come home. It's crazy because they're building startups in San Francisco or New York. And,
Yeah.
a lot of people have roots here. And sometimes, the Twitter bots come at me and they're like, we don't want anyone else from,
Sure.
we don't want other people to come here. And I'm like, no, there are brilliant people who were born here who
Right.
would love to live here and they can't because there's not enough fucking opportunities.
Yeah.
And so we
Those
come
people
home.
tweeting at you weren't even born here.
Or they
Yeah.
already have their residency here and they just don't tell anybody about it.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, there are brilliant people who are from here who, they just need that extra 10% or 20% to give them an excuse to be here. So they're
Yeah.
not completely sacrificing their career or their startup by living here, but actually we can help bring that innovation and make everyone like, a rising tide raises all ships, and we can just help each other
Yeah.
in this new property that we're building.
Yeah.
That is not a cult.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny you say that. I mean, first, I just personally, I want to put on the record, been here my whole life, love New Hampshire, love New England. I understand where people are coming from when they're skeptical of the
I do
concept.
too.
Right. Of I don't want a bunch of, the town I grew up in and the forest and all these things. Again, there's a bias towards things not changing and being static relative to when you self-actualize. That's real. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But, in talking to all the people whose full-time jobs it is, right, in the state government, at, independent organizations like the BIA or NHBSR, everybody, the people who take this question seriously, right, of I love New Hampshire, I want it to thrive in the future. I think there's something unique about its people and its culture and the way that it approaches problems. I want that ethos to be propagated into the future. It requires growth. It requires people, embracing in some fashion the idea that there are going to be more people here than there were before. And, it's a messy thing. Every place struggles with this, right? Particularly rural places. But on net, I think we overemphasize the downsides of it and underemphasize the things that are positive and good about that. So I am an emphatic pro-growth,
And we need to build a place where your children can stay.
Exactly.
I know the
Right.
Bring Back the Trades people really well.
Yeah,
and it's
they're my buddies.
We have brain drain. Our youngest people who are
Yes.
18, they go to a great college here and then they leave.
Right.
They
We
don't,
don't
want
have
to
any
leave.
tier 1 cities.
New Hampshire has the highest rate in the country of people who permanently leave the state when they turn 18. I mean, we're the second oldest, second fastest aging state after Maine, but
Ouch.
we're even higher than Maine in permanent exodus when you're 18.
Even though we have #1 quality of life, even though we
I
have...
think it might be number 6, but yeah, it's
Sure,
still
I'm just
stands
saying
in the
we
country.
have.
It's
not
high,
like-
it's
It's
high.
a really beautiful place.
Yeah.
There we do rank #1 on so many things, and yet people still leave because there aren't enough opportunities work-wise.
Yeah, affordability is a big issue, and that comes to a supply and demand question. And so if you're able to push on one, I mean, to go back to the change, you go back 100 years ago, the ratio of forest land to agricultural land was flipped.
Right.
100 years ago, we were 10% forest, 90% open land that was used mostly for farming. And so this whole construct of, wow, we're going to go back to a forest-driven environment, that's really a recency in construct. I mean, again, it's all a question of balance. I don't think anyone is talking about clear cutting huge
the
swaths
Mount
of
Washington
land,
National
but
Forest,
also
yeah.
the choices that we've made for whether it's single family homes, that actually eats up a lot. Like from a land choice perspective, that's not very efficient.
Right.
It's also not ecologically efficient in terms of water usage, both taking water out or putting water back in, sewer and treating it, or electricity or distribution. Like there's a lot of bad choices that actually were done in, one could say, in the 50s and 60s around how we wanted to have these much more suburban type of environments, and it's very different than what the farmhouse was, where you had a dedicated density of people that lived in a farmhouse,
Right.
with a bunch of land surrounding it.
Well, there's also a huge false choice here where if you say on Twitter, like, one business is coming to New Hampshire, people will say, like, I don't want my town in the Lakes region to be Detroit or something like that. And you can have everything you want in terms of preserving our natural beauty and being a mostly rural and outdoor state, and have massive population growth and massive economic growth in this state. We can fit it all here. This state is the size of a country. In most places in the world, this would be a country.
And so many people, I think, conflate the problems. It's like, and I'm very pro bringing entrepreneurs in because A, they make great neighbors, they're very responsible, but they also provide a lot of jobs and a lot of value.
Yes.
And they create an outsized impact compared to a normal person who's, maybe just works at a normal corporate job.
Working stiff.
People are always like, oh, well, I don't want all these new people to come because housing's so expensive. And I'm like, well, then let's build more housing.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, well, we can't because of the regulations. And I'm like, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
But we can't just say, hey, let's not provide jobs for our young people. Let's not create a place for the people who are already living here to thrive because we can't build more housing. Like, come on.
And to be clear, I don't know how big of a dent we're going to put in the housing market in terms of adding. I mean, we obviously will be adding houses to the market, but
Yeah.
a bigger thing I think we're going to do is hopefully start to add more seeds to the culture
Yes.
plant and actually get that to
Right.
grow, so people's attitude changes around these things.
Yeah.
Like,
Well-
I want someone to be building cool shit. Like, that's
Yeah.
really awesome.
Well, there's you made a joke about like the cult earlier, right? And I kind of want to like unpack that a little bit because, this is one of the things, right? That like in a cynical way, and I think it's justified in a sense. People think about Silicon Valley, right? Like the all-time epicenter for technology, even the sense of techno optimism, right? However out of touch, we perceive the people in Silicon Valley to be. And, when you think of this question of, culture and, vibes and like a shared ethos, my personal, again, you guys have more experience, like, a lot of these people.
We lived there for 7 years.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like I'm just like some dude who like is like a couch critic, like. But my view would be that yes, there are amazing. Like we should all be grateful at the end of the day that that Silicon Valley happened in the United States. Like it benefits us like disproportionately as a country. Like there's all these things we could talk about. Sometimes like it's bad. Like I don't even want to like whatever. All that notwithstanding, the same things that I think make Silicon Valley and its culture seem insular, totally nuts, totally out of touch, to like regular people, are probably the same things that in a flip side way make it the only place where impossible things then become possible. My personal view is that, Silicon Valley is like good in a lot of ways, but at the end of the day, it is probably in our net collective interest as a country and probably as the world for there to be more places, right, where there
I
can
agree,
be
yeah.
intentional, really well networked concentrations of people doing cool and interesting things, right? Why I feel it's important for there to be more of a technology hub here in New Hampshire and New England is because I like the values of people in New Hampshire and New England.
Yeah, we don't need the people in San Francisco driving all the innovation. I
Right.
mean, we can have.
It'd be more balanced if they didn't, and there's advantages to that,
Yeah, I think Austin is such a good city to look at because 10 years ago, no one was thinking about moving to Austin, and a huge shift happened. And now we see a ton of entrepreneurs building their businesses in Austin. And what was Josh's last name? Who passed? Josh Baer. So Josh Baer passed away recently. I didn't know him personally, but he was the founder of Capital Factory. And I am so enamored with him because he made such a huge impact on Austin, but the entire country, because he showed us that you can actually attract talent away from San Francisco. Before Austin, no one thought it could be done. And we're starting to see, and each city kind of has its own focus.
Yeah.
So Austin kind of was like podcasters for a while, but now, with Elon and Travis Kalanick moving their hardware startups there, it's becoming, in Prototown, it's becoming like a hard tech kind of focus, where Silicon Valley is a lot more focused on like B2B SaaS and AI. And then New York is focused more on fintech. I mean, Miami's a little bit of fintech, a little crypto. And New England is emerging with nuclear and biotech. And so we can each have our own culture and our own flavor and our own focus and our own area of expertise.
Or comparative advantage, right? That's another way. Yeah.
Yeah, and people love to complain about one town or city or an area or another. And like San Francisco's great. It is a cool place. There's a lot of energy, and it attracts a certain type of person who wants to live and work there, and that's great. And same thing with Boston, same thing with London, same thing with Tel Aviv. Like there's so many great and fantastic cities and places to be. Awesome to go visit them. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about the world being smaller. It's like you have this ability to go places. Richard Florida wrote this interesting book about the kind of how people migrate and the notion that people want to be around like people. And I think a lot of times there's more of this binary aspect to say, this is the only place you can do this, or this is the only place you can do this. And your viewpoint on, there's some places where doing the impossible is only hard, or doing the hard is sometimes a lot easier in the right environment, and you have a catalyst around you.
Right.
And I do think that the comparative advantage of location probably goes down over time. Like, we're getting better and better about the way in which the proximity of people matter. Although, like, you know, there's other philosophies that are like, oh, well, you have to be in the right spot at the right time. And I'm not quite sure. And I think both strategies actually work. It's like you want to be around things that, like, I love the ocean, the mountains. So like, this is a great place to be.
Right.
But I'm in DC. If I need to be, somewhere in Europe, need to be, or West Coast, need to be, you just kind of like figure that type of a thing out. And geography becomes this like very strange thing about wanting to think about how the terrain and the people impact who you are as a person and the types of things you can build. And that's one of the reasons why we want to go do this Freedom Village. We'll be announcing our plans at a summit that we're hosting. That's one of the fun things about the four of us. We'll be hosting the summit August 20 and August 21 on biotech and on building the future. And there'll be some plans about Freedom Village specifically, but great dialogues about some of the best New Hampshire people who are building literally world-class things. And it's going to be just a great time to celebrate those things, because they, to your point, they don't get celebrated the right way, because it's like, oh, they had the one breakthrough yesterday. Like, ho-hum, we're going to ignore that. It's like, no, we enjoy light bulbs every day. We don't have a celebration for it, but...
We're also Yankees, so we're
pretty
quiet. Like, we aren't boastful. We're not like vain people from LA. No offense to LA, but like, there's this Yankee energy that's just like, I'm just going to put my nose to the grindstone. I'm going to work. I'm not going to talk about it that much. In some ways we've done a disservice there. And I think that's why I'm like on Twitter with my John Cusack memes, like, build in New Hampshire. And you're like, look at all the shit that's happening in New Hampshire, because someone has to tell the world, because otherwise, we just have all these geniuses kind of tinkering and shipping stuff, but no one knows about it.
Well, I mean, there's this notion of like the way that people deeply embedded in the tech world are like kind of out of sync with, like, there's kind of two, and maybe my reading this is wrong, right? But like the caricatures, right, is either like totally Spartan, like Musk, right? What, love him or hate him, whatever you think of him, like, he's notorious for like, he essentially like lives in a box in Starbit. Like, he doesn't have like a giant, mansion or whatever.
Nearly homeless, nearly.
Yeah, right. Like, and then just the other day, I think there was an article in like the Wall Street Journal or something. It was about like how a lot of, AI engineers, young AI engineers are embracing like essentially living in like frat houses again. Right. And like hacker
They're
community.
Fun. Frat houses look fun. I mean, not for me personally, but
with just like this, like the sloppy, very masculine kind of broy atmosphere. And it's like, both things are true. It's like, which one of these ethoses, both of them are really out of touch from like regular people, and people perceive them as strange. But what I've liked a lot about, again, Freedom Village and the way that you've talked about it and the way that I understand it and kind of the values you've espoused about it is like, it is that New England spirit. Like, it is emblematic of the good life. This notion of like being around campfire and experiencing the seasons and being outside with people who are your friends and who you like, right? These experiences that we can have that are unique to this place, that is built into the way that you're trying to create the community and the culture around it. When a lot of people think about tech culture, they either have a crazy caricature of it, right? And one of the two examples I mentioned, or they're like, oh, that has nothing to do with me. And there's something really cool to be said for building world-class stuff here. New England and New Hampshire specifically, I think we're like the best example. You mentioned this. I think it's a good thing that we're politically heterogeneous. Yeah, that's the word. Like a lot of places aren't like that anymore. A lot of people, when they think of where they want to live, like they sort themselves politically, and like I get why, but I think on net that's like a bad trend. Like you should strive to interact and understand people who are different from you, and it's not necessarily the natural way of things, and like that's bad.
It's hard to listen to somebody who has a different opinion than you.
Yeah.
and also to embrace that and respect that they have agency and beliefs that don't harm you because they believe something different.
Yeah.
And on a political spectrum like that, I mean, that ability back, that's what actually, you're talking about AI. One of the things that AI actually has as a property is it's a conforming engine. It goes to a center, and so actually some there's some theory around how people develop political views. There's some extremism that actually can get filtered out through the adoption and the use of AI to help describe policy positions. Like that's cool.
Yeah,
and like I like to think that there's pendulums and stuff self-corrects. There's a lot of more damping forces in nature than I think that send us off on a crazy tilt.
Because it's charitable. I mean, AI, pretty much any major AI model, if you ask it to describe your opponent's political position, it'll like strive to give them a charitable
it'll be good
construction.
faith, you know.
Say something about why we're building Freedom Village is if you are an entrepreneur or an innovator or inventor or builder, you're not a normal person, and it's actually very exhausting to move through normal life.
There's so many good reasons not to do it.
Yeah, like it's hard, it's uncertain. A lot of founders are poor until they're not. They pour everything they have into their ideas, and I personally find this exhausting. I have tons of friends and family from all different walks of life, and why would you do that? That's not going to work. Did you figure, and it's like there's a certain negativity, and they don't even mean it. They don't mean it. It's just that in order to truly create something unique, you have to be delusionally optimistic. And it is really tiring to be around people who are also not delusionally optimistic. So kind of like in comedy, you always have to be like, yes, and.
Right.
Same with inventors and people are building. If you just come with all this negative energy, you're never going to innovate. You're not going to iterate to the next idea. And when I'm brainstorming, I have like an intern that I love. Her name's Shayla, and she's like, well, this is a bad idea, and I'm like, first of all, there are no bad ideas. We cannot have any shame in our creative process because that might not be the idea we arrive on, but it's going to be the stepping stone to the next idea. And being around people who think that all new ideas are bad is just fucking tiring.
Right.
And so we want to be around people who want to build the future, who don't want to stay home and watch Netflix every night, who want to have philosophical conversations, who want to try to innovate, who want to, accidentally singe all their eyebrow hairs off because they're like trying to figure out whatever this thing is that they're building.
Do you know someone who that's happened to?
Certainly.
Never eyebrows for me.
Yeah, you have some thick eyebrows. Those look like they've been there a while.
Wicked syndrome.
Yeah, I think with nuclear, you're going to end up like transmuting them into some other, like mutating your eyebrows.
I lost arm hair a bunch of times.
Arm hair is gone. Yeah.
I think you bring up a good point, but to lean into that, you said entrepreneurs are rare. I think the future that we're moving into is that more people, not everybody might agree with this, but I think more people are going to be founders or discover how to be a founder in the future when labor is going to get commoditized and intelligence is getting commoditized. So now it's just the what is almost more important than how you create the what. And, like thinking of new ways to direct this energy to create new things. And so if that is the case, I do think we need more people to do what we're doing across the world to be like, yeah, we're going to create little communes because we want to like
capitalist communes.
Slowly re-educate everybody to like go create something. It's very fulfilling. It's extremely
and it's actually
fulfilling.
the natural state of the world. We didn't, 200 years ago, 300, 500 years ago, we didn't all work for big W-2 corporations and show up to, like we were very nuclear and high agency. Like someone was a cobbler and then the whole family kind of oriented around that business. And we used to be much more independent. And I've seen so many times, because I've been on my own, like feeding myself since 2018. And I've seen so many people be like, oh, I could never take that risk. And I'm like, your W-2 job, the security of that is a complete myth. Like that is, that is a perception that you have that is just like not real. And I think people are starting to see that now. But yeah, I think everyone has it in them to be an entrepreneur in some way.
Yeah. Well, this notion of human-centered insert your word, capitalism, AI, commerce, economics, right? There's all these different design, right? That's one you hear a lot. They're all, I feel like, various versions of this, like this feeling that the default state of any one of those things like does not naturally place, human agency and human needs and human, ideals like at the center of it. I hate the phrase social capital because it's like, it's a professionalized and economic way of describing just like the community. Like most people don't know what that means. They just think community, but Robert Putnam, right? Who's like,
Lou Feldstein.
Yeah, right.
Bowling Alone.
Yeah, preeminent scholar of this very thing is like how connected are Americans to each other over time, et cetera. Like he lives in Jaffrey.
Yeah, I was going to say also a place that New Hampshire ranks like at the top of.
Putnam lives in Jaffrey?
Robert Putnam, yeah.
Wow, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Right? It's great. I met him like a year ago. Well,
Everybody thinks of him as a Boston dude.
I shouted at him from the audience. I didn't really meet him. But this is a thing that I think, like, again, I am happy and excited that like there are more people who want to come and be here, build things here for the sake of it, right? Because New Hampshire, I think, has a lot to say about this moment in time. I think of these weird disconnects. Everybody hates corporations. People love farmers markets. Everybody hates capitalism, but not everybody. But like these words, what do they mean anymore? They enter the discourse, they lose all meaning. It's like, where's the disconnect, right? At what size does a business, like when do you get so successful that you become distasteful and inhuman, right? What is that boundary? I don't know. But New Hampshire is a place where like extraordinary things are happening. Most of the businesses are small businesses, right? So like that's an ethos and a literal economic environment that's like very intact in a way that's unique to other places. And so, I don't know, the idea that there could be such an intentional community of people who like are doing it out of love for this place and the values that it has and the things it has to say about the kind of world we want to build today. I think a lot of people, their instinct is going to be like, oh, it's tech people, they're going to write off the whole thing. And I'm not that interested in a conversation without nuance. Like, this is a really cool thing that you're doing, and I'm glad that it's happening here.
Also, come to our parties. Even if you don't like us, just come. You'll probably have a good time.
Yeah.
And we'll learn something from it. So it's it's not just altruistic for the come and be part of the community. It's
Sure.
like we will learn through lots of different opinions and understanding where are the places that people have some sort of fear about what the future is. Like those are things that not everything can be engineered around, but you can do a pretty good job in trying to fix those types of things and getting at like a lot of the data center conversations, not to go in a topic that's in the news that much, but there's a lot of conversation about data centers. And
Yeah.
I was asking my kids actually, be like, oh, what do you know about this? I'm like, oh, data centers suck up a lot of water, but I don't know if that's true.
Yeah.
And so like having the conversation of, hey, data centers are probably inherently like neutral. They generate tax revenue. They also don't have to consume water.
Right.
And so if we want to think about what are the trade-offs of, okay, we want to allow land use and private rights to prevail, but we also want to be thoughtful on what type of resources that we as a community have available. There's ways to go fix that. And rather than having this pitchfork and torches environment where it's like, oh, we don't want to rail around this thing, like not in my backyard. It's like, how can we turn into more of a yes in my backyard? And I want to do so in a way that's responsible and thoughtful. And that, I think, is the way New Hampshire actually leads really well, is that we can have that social capitalism and be like, hey, like, I like your idea if we change it 10%. It's like the yes and. It's like, how do we change it 10% to make it better?
How do we get to yes? Something that I feel very strongly about, and again, it's a little bit why I like have wanted to approach the very concept of like technology in the tech sector and the tech community, like in a very, very intentional way, is I think that most of the time, if not always, learning about things, especially complex issues, which all are, through the news media, there's good things about that, but often it's a fundamentally unuseful.
It's a 90-second clip. You
It's a
can't have a
90-second.
nuanced conversation or informed conversation.
You can't.
And
You
I
can't.
think people just need to ask more questions. Like, hey, I've heard about data centers, but I'm worried about the water. Versus, like, they actually. I'm like, well, have you seen a golf course, or have you ever eaten an almond? I hope not.
It's taken out of context a lot.
But yeah, it's just like people aren't necessarily that interested in being educated about it. But
Right.
On that topic of like education, we will be hosting a ton of events, and we really are all passionate about young people. And even prior to college, I know there's like always a lot of alumni groups and stuff, but I'm like, hey, let's get them even younger. We've all kind of joked about like everyone living at the village. Let's say there's 100 people at the village. They're all super fucking nerdy,
Right.
like really smart people. Like I'm the stupidest one out of all of them. And if everyone hosted one workshop a year, there would be 2 workshops a year to go to.
Right.
And those are like, hey, let me show you how to do welding.
Yeah.
Let me teach you how a nuclear power plant works. Let me show you how GPUs are made. Like, I don't know, just really interesting apprentice stuff. And I think the world of education shifting really there's a huge shift happening. That's a whole other episode as well. But, all this bite-sized learning and this like applied learning where you're like, okay, I want to build this thing. Oh, I'm not understanding why this works. Let me go understand the theory versus like 4 years of theory. And then maybe you'll go get your hands dirty. So I know we're all passionate about like workshops and bringing people on site, working with other groups to get people's hands dirty and seeing how things get built.
Well, especially, I mean, this notion of like big important things and forces or ideas in the world, whether they be, I hate to say the phrase AI. Like, it's not because I don't think those things are important. I just like, I am only interested in like being original, and a pretty solid bet to make is everything out there is going to have a negativity bias in the media, and there's probably to be some positive upside that you can like emphasize or talk about. And like, that's been a pretty interesting niche to explore. And it's certainly true in the technology sense. And so I have a perennial allergy to anything that's like popular, the thing that everyone else is already talking about, which doesn't mean that like the conversation around AI and data centers and all these things, like, of course it's important. Of course it has nuance, but what you're trying to do, I find very interesting and positive, because it's going to be a way that, all kinds of people, maybe even especially young people, they can learn about some crazy thing, like a particular technology or nuclear power or whatever, but then they can come and they can touch it, like they can go learn about it.
One thing, whenever someone talks about AI on the national, like when everybody who's consuming media about AI, that media is easily spread across the national media, and that's why it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I'm excited about this and Prototown, and I can't name any others, but I wish I could.
I wish there were more.
Is that you'd now get people, little kid grows up, hears about Freedom Village, they go there once in a while for whatever, little
nerdy summer
learning
camp,
how to
geek camp,
building a little whatever, and then they hear in the news, oh, AI bad, and they're like, whatever, I don't know, this is really cool, and they go back to this place and
science camps,
this
robots
whole
camps.
like whenever this ideology emerges and spreads across the national news, you can't fight it. Like, you just can't fight it. The only way to fight it is like bottoms up. You're like, well, no, I personally work on this thing over here with these guys, and it's actually pretty great.
What'd you do at summer camp? Oh, well, I built a birdhouse, and then I built a lung.
Right. People are going to get to say that, maybe, like, it's very cool.
Oh, they definitely will. Yeah.
Solar punk summer camp, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Well, okay. I mean, that phrase
I made
even
a chip.
Well, like, this is the thing that, like, solar punk, right? Do you all know what that means?
We think we do.
I think
you reminded me of it earlier when you were talking about, like, I want this synthesis of like community and closeness to nature, and I also want techno optimism.
Well, so
and
this
innovation.
is a thing. Like, again, like, my auspice is, my whole like, I'm a believer in this like tribal theory of political ideology, right? Like, it's not really, and never been clear to me, like, why someone's views about like taxation or like regulation or foreign policy, like, that they should all be correlated in the way that they are in like modern political conversations. Like, they're really, really strange. That's a whole other conversation. But that's all to say, like, my tribe is liberal. Like, my family is left of center. My professional life always has been left of center. So it's like, that's the environment that I am steeped in and like represent. And so I have to go out of my way to understand people who aren't from that tribe, so to speak. And that's like, obviously huge. There's probably like 12 distinct, tribes and whatever. But, I come from the environmental world, and like, I've studied conservation. Literally my major was hug trees. I've done a bunch of different like climate policy, beekeeping, impact investing, right? This concept of like, how can you deploy capital to like tackle environmental problems and make money at the same time? Like, there's this whole world that I've touched a bunch of different things in. And I love thinking about technology because like, it is actually a place where like you can see a real horseshoe. Like, people talk about the horseshoe theory, like all these things can converge. And, solar punk is this phrase that emerged as near as I can tell. It's not like anyone invented it. It's just like a vibe. We know it's cyberpunk, right? The Matrix is cyberpunk. It's this dystopian future where technology is used to like oppress and, harm people and make shit bad.
It's a metal wasteland.
It's a metal wasteland, right?
There's no trees.
There's no trees. There's definitely never any trees, right? And it's like solar punk is like this, and there's steampunk, steampunk's like for super nerds and whatever. It's kind of cool, but there's all these different like punks, right? And like, operative word being punk, in that it's like, it is a kind of commentary or an inherent rebellion against like the society you're living at the time. Like, cyberpunk was born in the 80s. Anyway, whole other thing. But solar punk is like the explicitly like it's like, how can we merge, environmentalism, right? This idea that we can like be stewards of the earth and things that aren't human can thrive alongside us, and embrace technology, right? Like, can we have a synthesis of these values? And, you know, you'll see the same, again, this is my whole world, is like I talk to people who are like very left of center who, you know, come at these things from a different angle. And I'm like, how do we get cheap nuclear power maximally everywhere all the time? Like, this is a good thing. More energy turns the world into a positive sum place, you know? It's like, and it's a conversation that's been happening more and more, but like, you know, I think what you're doing is very solar punk. And
I wanna
this is my
merge-
soapbox to talk about all
The
this
solar
shit.
punk checks out. The images I was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like Chobani made this commercial, right? And then people were mad because it's a Chobani commercial, but like there's this whole thing.
We need more solar
need-
punk media for
We
sure.
do.
Yeah.
We do.
All
That's
right.
why I'm doing this.
We're gonna send the Freedom Village Army to make solar punk memes.
I mean, I love what I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I really
Solar punk
want
swag.
to like be vibe coding and like building my startup, and then I want to go like pull carrots and make sourdough. And
Yes.
I literally want both of those things, and I'm not gonna compromise. And that's why I don't want to live in New York City. You know, I
Right.
lived there, and it's just like smelled like trash and it's covered in concrete, and it's
Yeah.
hard to leave.
You mentioned, you know, being in the left tribe, but I have this exact same conversation. I've heard that exact same thing so
Yeah.
often from people on the right who are also entrepreneurial, where they'll say,
Yeah.
I feel so strongly the pull of these two very powerful dynamics that are seemingly in tension with each other, and I struggle internally with like how to synthesize them.
Right.
But, you know, we were talking about like housing and demographic policy earlier. That's a clear example of where your political position is pretty unlinked in New Hampshire from your like traditional
Yeah.
kind of you know, bipolar tribal identity, in that there's like a 4-quadrant political compass when it comes to something like, do you want young families with children living in New Hampshire, where there's people who say yes on both the left and the right, and people who say no on both the left and the right.
Well, Freedom Village is going to be a whole dynamo.
And we're announcing fully the plans at Freedom Summit,
Yeah.
which is a 2-day conference. We're kind of tag teaming it together. So you want to talk about day one?
Yeah, well, day one is Bioinnovation Day. Freedom Summit is co-hosted by Granite Bioinnovation and Freedom Village. And Bioinnovation Day is going to be, people are going to hear from an incredible parade of biotech companies and also people who are working at the intersection of biotech and policy. Biotech companies that are either in New Hampshire or exploring building a presence in New Hampshire, or in the greater Boston area in Massachusetts, who would like to move their operations up into New Hampshire. Every one of these companies, for the most part, is working on something that's so frontier, it doesn't fit neatly into this rigid FDA paradigm I described earlier.
Yeah.
And any one of these companies really is an illustration of the extent to which progress in biotech and our ability to use biotech to promote human flourishing is just directly linked to law and policy. So one of the fundamental things that's needed for biotech to move forward, for America to be competitive internationally in biotech, is for a jurisdiction like New Hampshire to say, we're going to dedicate ourselves to using policy reform to make this an optimal jurisdiction for biotech, and New Hampshire is in the best position to do that.
And then day two is all about building the future. We're going to be talking about some kind of cultural community things, about like unleashing creativity and innovation, especially in the state. We've got Parda talking about AI. We've got a Yale professor. Dean Kamen's going to kick off day two. Can we say we have the governor, Kelly Ayotte, on day one? Or we have to edit that out?
We'll do Bioinnovation Day speakers too. Yeah, so Governor Ayotte is confirmed to speak at Bioinnovation Day.
Right on.
BioAge, which is a publicly traded company working on metabolic aging. Epibone, who grows bone grafts and cartilage grafts from your own mesenchymal stem cells. Quadroscope Ventures, which is a VC firm in the Boston area. Glyphic Bio will be announcing the opening of the first right to try based clinic in New Hampshire, dedicated to using New Hampshire's existing right to try framework. And to give another example, people will hear from a mother and inventor who created an N of 1 individualized gene therapy for her son who had a genetic illness. So
Wow.
the intersection of biotech and policy and patient experience.
It's like the World's Fair,
And
gonna be-
more.
but not cringy.
And more.
Right.
Do you have anything else, Jeremy, to add about it?
No, just that. I guess I do.
You do. Of course you do.
Of course I do. Celebrating that innovation that does take place all the time, every day, and some of the world-class people that are doing that, and we'll all get to meet some fascinating innovators who are optimistic about the future and trying to make it a better place.
We're really focused on signal over noise. There's some incredible people coming who have like 1,600 LinkedIn followers. It's like these
Yeah.
people should be known.
Yeah.
You're saying that that's a small number.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, there's people who've like invented hundreds of things, and like
Yeah.
they have very few Twitter followers
Right.
because they're not busy tweeting all day. They're
Right.
busy building. So
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, that is a big thing that I've learned, in the 2 years that I've, been doing this in some fact, is like a lot of the time the people who are, the most like virtuous or focused on like just doing a thing or building a thing, like they're not
solving an actual problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have a daily Twitter strategy.
They are not often correlated with being excellent self promoters, right?
Of course, yeah.
Sometimes they are, but it's very, very,
Very rare,
And
yeah.
so it's a really fun activity, in like a journalistic and media sense, to just like find really cool people, give them the microphone, and just like let it rip, like cook, like people should know who you are, and that's the whole ethos of what I'm trying to do, because I am a big believer. I think you can make a very solid, data-backed case for this. Like, this notion of optimism it's not just like a vibe. Like it matters categorically that we are able to articulate and understand and propagate a positive vision for the future. It makes all these other things in your life and in society more likely to go well. Optimists get more done. They're more pragmatic. They're certainly healthier, right? Like, that's a thing you can measure. And it's also like rational. You can like just make a bunch of, and again, put it this way. My favorite statement to try and like elucidate why this shit matters to people in a succinct way is like, hey, these 3 statements are true at the same time, right? Statement number 1, the world sucks. We know that the world sucks because kids die every day who, they could live to be teenagers, but we know that they don't for reasons that are preventable, right? That's statement number 1. Statement number 2, the world's better than it used to be in so many ways that we can measure, right? Child mortality is like, no one should be pro child mortality. We should all be pro more kids living. And the proportion of kids who survive today to be teenagers is like astronomically more today than it was in the year 1800. This is a good thing that we can all agree on, like directionally, right? And then statement number 3 is the world can be so much better than it is right now. It can be radically, radically better. We know it's possible to have no kids die in childbirth, right? But they're all true at the same time, right? They don't contradict each other. They just sit in their complexity. And my view and conviction as like a media person and a solutions journalist who tries to be like explicitly optimistic isn't that we should deny statement number 1. It's that we are so good at telling the story of number 1, all the ways that the world sucks and is getting worse. Like, we are just like very, very, very good at propagating that narrative. And we suck at telling the stories of 2 and 3, ways that the world's better than it was and ways that it can be better still. If we're serious about number 1, we have to talk about 2 and 3. We got to talk about 2 and 3. And
yeah, we can't just ruminate in all the problems. We have to fix things.
No. So when you guys started using this language and identified as like, we are techno optimists, I'm like, these are my people. More people need to know.
You're our people.
How many watts did you consume, or how many watts are you consuming right now?
I don't even know. Do you know?
Let's get those numbers up.
Does it go up a lot? Like, if you like drink caffeine, does your wattage increase a lot? I don't even know.
That's safe to say. Yep.
The life cycle of all the products you're using.
Anyway, I mean, I get high when I find all these good news stories. Like, that's what it feels like to me.
And thank you for all your work. I mean, I discovered you on LinkedIn and you were like 603 things. Then I was like, oh my God. I read them all.
Did you?
And yeah, I discovered you.
It's
It was
ridiculous.
a couple years ago. You had some like roundup of like at the end of the year
That's
of all
what
the
I do.
things that had gone well. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's so like low level to just always be in the rage bait space.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
It's
like gravity to
yeah.
just
It's
be.
what's
in
the
there.
default?
Yeah.
I mean, part of what attracts me to this work and this narrative is like I mean, I am an optimistic person, but like a sense of contrarianism, right? Which I think is like dovetails well with the entire world. Like you have to believe something that a lot of people are rationally convinced like otherwise and shouldn't be true, right? And so like to really believe, and I'm like, the data is everywhere to be more optimistic about the world, but we're not good at telling that story. And so it's like, I am trying my best to affect a cultural vibe shift in this region because, it matters, and it's an easy way to get people excited about stuff. All right, we've been going for like 90 minutes. Do we want to wrap it up?
I have to pee.
You have to pee?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. In one sentence, why are you optimistic about the future?
I'll go first with the ending. I am optimistic about the future because I feel like we are getting to a place where we can talk about challenges and problems. And once you get to that place, then it's straightforward to go solve them. May take longer, may take more energy, more effort than you want to, but we're I think, in the midst of being able to solve some really fundamental human drawbacks, and I'm excited about the future.
I'm excited because the idea of like Freedom Village, I've heard Friedberg and Balaji, if you don't know those, check them out. David Friedberg and Balaji Srinivasan, both talking recently about freedom cities, how we need more places where people can go. It just seems like it's a zeitgeist. So we've been saying, I hope more people build these, and I feel like we're on the early side, but I'm really excited to see these pop up all over the place.
We hope there will be a federation, and we'll just help help other areas do the same thing. Even if we don't have any like financial benefit, it's just like, let's open source the playbook,
right? Help
people navigate this, because we should absolutely have like 100 of these innovation places that are not just San Francisco, New York, Boston. There's 400 million people in this country. We should have zillions of these.
Yeah, my closing statement is New Hampshire is uniquely...
You're so legalistic. I love it.
uniquely providentially ordained to be the capital of the United States in experimental biotech. Wow. There are all these forces working in our favor. There are a few obstacles in the way, and breakthroughs require agency. But if we work together to clear those obstacles, then I think nature will work its course, and New Hampshire will be a national leader in this field.
I mean, all I would say in closing, right, to my friends and people who may listen to this, right, is like, I mean, look, we're steeped in these debates all the time about the optimal way to look at or solve or make progress on any particular issue, right? In housing, in energy, in opioids, in, social issues, and, et cetera, right? And there are many good debates and good conversations, I think, that are happening in good faith in New Hampshire, probably more than in other places, that are geared towards these things. People can have their policy beliefs and ideas. I'm totally there. Have those conversations. But the way that New Hampshire is structured now, right, in terms of its reputation, its regulatory environment, its culture, all these different things, I think that it is underutilized for the kind of opportunities that this group is talking about, right?
Completely underrated.
Underrated, right? And so it's like primed for growth in a very positive way. And so like when I want people to learn and understand like what Freedom Village is and why people are doing it, my view is not that this is the only way that people should think of like solving problems or making progress. Think like, by all means, let's continue to have these debates on important issues like housing and all these different things. But we have a set of advantages, and the way that New Hampshire is today, however people might want it to change for the future, et cetera, this is a thing that we have now. You just heard Ian say, what, divinely providentially ordained?
I would co-sign that statement, yeah.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like, we could and should be so much better at it, and this group of people is leading the way in that, and I think it's a very good thing. So, thanks for coming on and doing episode 1 of Yankee Dynamism, baby.
Woo-hoo.
Yankee D.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Hey, we'll see you at the Freedom Summit.
Can't wait to have you there.
Hell yeah.
August 2021.
Wow. All right, thanks everybody. Hey there, thanks for spending some time with us, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. You can learn more about today's guest and how to get involved with or support their work in the show notes. Yankee Dynamism is a podcast produced by Granite Goodness. Granite Goodness is made possible through the generous support of our Optimists Club, the community of paid supporters to Granite Goodness, all of whom share our belief in highlighting local stories that are substantive and optimistic, granite and good. If you like what we do and want to support us, please subscribe at granitegoodness.com, consider joining our Optimists Club, or leave our podcast a rating or review. If you have any good news story tips, would like to suggest a guest for the show, or just say hi, please shoot us a message at hello@granitegoodness.com. Until next time, I'm the creator and host of Yankee Dynamism, Andy DeMeo. Thanks for listening.